Today on the Morning Edition, tracking Halong. The former typhoon is wreaking havoc along Alaska's west coast with hurricane-force winds and intense flooding. But DEC states that even after the storm passes, the safety concerns aren't immediately over. Floodwaters can cause entirely different concerns. And airports all along the coast were battered and bruised by the wind, rain, and flying debris. Cleanup efforts are already underway on these important lifelines as the Morning Edition starts now. Good Monday morning, everyone. Let's get right to it. Aaron, Western Alaska is dealing with a lot right now.
Yeah, we've been seeing through the weekend winds gusting as high as anywhere from 60 to about 100 miles per hour. Of course, some of those stronger winds were through parts of southwest Alaska and out over the eastern parts of the Bering Sea. Now, this morning, while we are dealing with some impacts, the greatest impacts that we did see through the weekend, those are beginning to wind down. With that said, we're still seeing some flooding potential. Those tidal gauge still showing that we could see some areas holding on to some minor flooding throughout the day, particularly through areas of northwest Alaska. Out towards Kotzebue right now this morning, where we're waking up to those temperatures sitting at 36 degrees. Still fairly breezy. Now, the strongest winds, those have kind of exited off towards the northeast as the remnants of that typhoon continues to build along the Arctic slope. Now, on the backside of this system, things are beginning to calm down in terms of precipitation. We're seeing those winds. Those are also calming down. But as those floodwaters begin to recede for areas of western and southwest Alaska, you'll begin to see some changes as those floodwaters recede due to that erosion that we did see for many areas out west with that ongoing flooding. But again, we're still seeing that potential for additional impacts today as that storm system continues to shift north. So while we did see the greatest concern through the weekend for areas south of the Seward Peninsula, today we're going to be focusing in on areas north of the Seward Peninsula. You can see the number of storm reports we've seen coming in through the weekend. Many of those strong winds that we did see with this remnants of that Typhoon Halong, which again is still with us this morning. Notice the water levels out towards Kotzebue. Last week it peaked at 6.71 feet. Today it's expected to peak just under about 3.5 feet of water levels, and which is still above about minor flood stage. So you'll still see some impacts from this storm system. Thankfully, not as great as what we were expecting with this storm, but that coastal flood warning showing that through the remainder of today, we are going to continue to see some of that storm surge anywhere from about 3 to 5 feet out towards Kotzebue, even out towards Utqiagvik. We could see that storm surge up to about 1 to 2 feet above the normal high tide. Kristen? Well, Chief Meteorologist, Melissa Fry has been in Nome all weekend, where she is following the impacts of what was former Typhoon Halong. And Melissa, you've come across many stories this week of surviving flooding, homes floating down the river, and high winds. How are things shaping up this morning?
Yeah, Aaron, it's just been incredible to see the community and many communities coming together here across Western Alaska, preparing for the storm, surviving the storm, and now beginning that early recovery phase from the storm. Now, here in Nome, it is a completely different feeling here this morning. It is calm. There is no wind. The temperature certainly much colder, but the biggest difference is just how calm it is, because yesterday we could hardly stand out here with those winds gusting well over 50 miles per hour, rain pounding through the day. We did see water levels come up around 5 feet here overnight. Those are now starting to recede. So no major impacts here in Nome. But as you have seen, just such a different story to our south there through that YK Delta region, where we did see Category 2, a hurricane force strength wind gust that tore through the area, really bringing in that extreme wind. And it was through the night last night that I started getting calls and texts and messages from people literally asking for help. I spoke with Tamua Paul as her home was floating away from the village. Here is her story. Extreme wind. And water where it shouldn't be. From Bethel to Kipnik and everywhere in between, as the former Typhoon Halong tears a path across the Bering Sea.
I put on my sandals and I noticed there's water on the floor, and I called my sister right away.
Tamura Paul woke up to water on the floor of her home and soon realized she and her daughters were in trouble.
We are kind of far from the river, and the flood usually doesn't hit us.
I was able to reach her by phone as her home wasn't just flooding, but floating downriver.
I was sleeping during the storm, and I woke up to messages from my sister She just said that my house was floating away.
Sending pleas for help on social media as the house rocked.
Do you know how it sounds to be on a boat?
Yeah.
In waves?
Yeah.
Sounds like that.
Oh my goodness.
She reminds her girls they are going to be okay, but need help to come soon as they suspect they are now miles from home.
We're good, we're scared, but we're good. I keep telling them we're breathing. We're still breathing, we're alive.
And just to the north, the village of Typhoon also flooding. You can see the water tearing through the village, taking anything with it as the high winds continue. From the coast to the river, even further inland, buildings couldn't hold up to the wind. That was a window shattered by flying debris at David Miller's home in a village just north of Bethel. He said he also lost his shed and likely more. But the concern from families who can't reach their loved ones is everyone accounted for. The National Guard is actively doing search and rescue operations now to make sure.
We're just actively in a response phase. We're search and rescue, life, health, safety, making sure that people are getting out of those situations, and we're doing everything we can to support them.
In Nome, as the winds increase, operation specialists with the state are responding to needs here, while also concerned about those to the south.
Our hearts go out to everyone affected. This is a really scary moment for a lot of people. There's so much at play, so much damage.
Lucio says first, be safe. Call 911 if you need help. But if you can, also document the damage.
If you do have damages to your home, please capture that in photographs, collect all important documentation. That's especially important in the recovery phase that comes after this.
It's been a tough day for these Alaskans, and the extent of the damage is still not fully known as the storm continues its path, now across the Seward Peninsula. Melissa Fry, Alaska's news source. It's just hard to imagine even talking there with Tamua and with other families that were literally in their home as it was floating downriver, and they didn't know where they were going. They didn't know when it was stopped, and they were needing that search and rescue. Now, the second call that I made was right to the National Guard. They told me that they were aware of the situation. They were sending crews in. And that was the story all day yesterday. It wasn't until late last night that we started getting word in that more of these people were being found, being rescued, and being taken to safety. So we continue to hope for good news there and good stories. And here, live again in Nome, it is calm. You can't see it behind me, but the Bering Sea is there. We can hear those waves crashing, but it sure is nice to see and hear a much calmer Bering Sea this morning. We'll see what the recovery efforts bring today. Kristen?
All right, thanks, Melissa. Let's get back to that unbelievable moment caught on camera in Kipnuk, where a shipping container carried by the high floodwaters and strong winds knocks into a home. Homes in western Alaska not standing up to the conditions former Typhoon Halong brings into the state. This is video that shows some of what people are fighting against as the storm pummels villages and towns. It's one of the most difficult storms people in western Alaska have seen. Now, according to data from NOAA, this is record-breaking flooding by more than a foot. The Department of Public Safety says at least 8 homes in that area were pushed from their foundations. Adelmi Ruiz joins us now. She's been keeping an eye on the developing situation as several people are unaccounted for in western Alaska. Adelmi.
Kristen, officials say that there are 3 people that are still unaccounted for in Kwigillingok, and others may be unaccounted for in Kipnuk. State troopers say at least 18 people were rescued in Kwigillingok, and at least 16 people were rescued in Kipnuk. The Department of Public Safety says it's continuing to work with local officials to verify and confirm the count of those who are still missing. They advise that anyone that needs immediate rescue can contact the Alaska Rescue Coordination Center. And looking ahead, with storms like this, safety concerns continue after this water subsides. The Alaska Department of Environmental Conservation says systems like wells and wastewater treatment plants can be negatively impacted. Also, fuel systems and homes can be damaged and leak into the environment. For example, heating oil tanks can come loose from their structures and float away or tip over. The DEC is ready to go into the field once the State Emergency Operations Center calls.
And this is going to include helping communities assess their drinking water and wastewater systems. We'll be helping out with any spills or contamination and supporting, safe cleanup and recovery operations.
Situation, bring you updates as they become available to us. Kristen.
All right, thanks, Adelmi. The Alaska Department of Transportation is also working to keep up with storm damage across the western portion of the state.
The Bethel Airport took a lot of high wind, a lot of debris on the runway. So our airport maintenance people are clearing that runway.
Crews in Bethel were hard at work Sunday following hours of sustained wind speed and high water. While cleanup efforts are underway, it'll be hours before the full extent of the damage will be known. As we all work to see what the scale of the damage will be, Shannon McCarthy with the DOT says people of western Alaska will need continued support through this significant storm.
We're really part of just a larger statewide team. So DEC, state troopers, even the U.S. Coast Guard, FEMA, those are all of us are working together. We are providing that support through the state's Emergency Operations Center, both with our partners and with our state partners and with our federal partners as well.
McCarthy says keeping runways clear is so important because our airports are our lifelines. Coming up next on the Morning Edition, it's the harsh reality we live in. Shootings can happen any place, anytime. We'll show you how school admin, first responders, and law enforcement are preparing for the worst in an active shooter drill in the Matsu. We'll bring you those details.
And continuing to see impacts out west and through northwest Alaska from what was former Typhoon Halong. I'll have more on that and what to expect throughout the week. But first at sunrise, 8:38 in Anchorage, 7:30 in Juneau. Your full forecast is next.
Welcome back on this Monday morning. Aaron, once again, just western Alaska dealing with flooding and the aftermath of the remnants of Typhoon Halong. What's the latest?
Well, the brunt of those impacts really gripped areas of southwest Alaska, particularly out towards Kuskokwim Delta coastline, through areas of the Yukon Delta, and for locations inland. You can see some photos coming in from across western and southwest Alaska from what was former Typhoon Halong. This is out towards Akiak, upriver. You can see that erosion as well as that boat that's kind of hanging off the side of we could call that somewhat of a cliff. This photo coming in from Nelson Jasper. And then out towards Eek, you can see those flooded roadways that we have been dealing with ongoing heavy rainfall, as well as storm surge that led to some areas seeing some significant flooding. Some of the greatest storm surge that we did see out towards Kipnuk, where we did see that tidal gauge topping out at just over 14 feet. Now, this is the Kipnuk tidal gauge at Kipnuk. Notice that drastic reduction in water levels between Saturday and Sunday before that storm surge did arrive. Now, latest reports showing that it did peak at 14.52 feet with a record being 13 feet. So this was about 1.5 feet above the previous record, and we're still seeing some of that flooding that's occurring out towards western and southwest Alaska. Now, as far as what we're dealing with in terms of the winds, yes, we're still holding on to some gusty conditions across areas of western Alaska, but the core of the stronger winds, those are shifting to the north, particularly out towards the northwest Arctic Borough, areas of the slope, and then as you head out towards the Alcan border. So things will begin to calm down for many areas of western Alaska throughout today. With that said, you'll still see the potential for some flooding potential, as well as some heavy snowfall through areas of the western Brooks Range, and some ongoing rain could lead to some additional flooding. Now, as we transition into our Tuesday and Wednesday, we'll be watching another storm that's going to be building in south of the Aleutians. Now, the good news with this storm system is it's going to take more of an approach towards the southern coastline. So areas of western Alaska, you will not see impacts from this. But as that storm system moves in, we will begin to see some increasing winds building back in across the Aleutians. A difference with this storm track, notice these winds as they build into southwest Alaska. They'll particularly be out of the northwest. So we're not going to see some of those stronger winds. We're not going to see significant surge with this storm system. It's really just going to bring some windy conditions, particularly out towards the Aleutians. as well as some high seas, and then more rain expected across South Central as we welcome in the middle of the week. As far as the rain that we're dealing with across the state, we've got ongoing rainfall across South Central. You can see still dealing with more of that rain in areas of wintry mix and snow as you head out west. But this is that next storm system that we're going to begin to watch building in out towards the Aleutians as we welcome in our Tuesday and Wednesday. That will clip the southern coastline, leading to increasing rain through the Alaska Peninsula, southwest Alaska, and into South Central. So once again, be prepared for additional rain and winds. With this upcoming storm system, I'll go ahead and tell you, it's going to be nothing like these last two, but we will see the potential for some winds, which could gust up to about 40 to 50 miles per hour through areas of southwest Alaska. Even areas of the Aleutians could see some wave heights topping out at about 20 to 30 feet with this storm system. So we'll be watching for that. That 7-day forecast here across South Central. We are going to see some rain and some cooler conditions. We'll be talking about more about that throughout the morning show, as well as more of those impacts coming in from what was former Typhoon Halong. Kristen.
All right, thanks, Aaron. When a shooting happens, especially at a place like a school, having a plan and being prepared is essential. That's why first responders across the Matsu took part in an active school shooter drill at an elementary school. It took place at Iditarod Elementary in Wasilla. The drill included law enforcement agencies, emergency response crews like fire and EMS, and school administrators. Wasilla's chief of police says the services across the valley haven't done a large-scale multi-agency response exercise like this.
I think a lot of it's going to be law enforcement is going to learn what EMS is going to do, is going to learn what the school district is going to do, and vice versa, is that EMS and the school district and the hospital and all these other entities that we have to work with are going to understand from the law enforcement aspect.
School districts often run drills throughout the year, but active shooter drills are difficult to run. So for the school district, the chance to simulate experience with volunteers from the district can help them understand what needs to be done in those chaotic moments.
We have individuals who have agreed to participate on a Saturday to really learn and feel what this is like in real life. And so we just appreciate people's willingness to give up their time on a Saturday and learn a little bit more about this scenario so that we can share that experience with all of our administrators, all of our staff, and feel more prepared.
The exercise included high school students and their parents also simulating the events, with some parents being told to act how they would in the event the tragedy ever occurred.
Thanks for listening to our podcast. Click subscribe so you can get the latest podcasts from Alaska's news source automatically, and stay up to date with breaking news and in-depth reporting available for free 24/7 with the Alaska's news source app.